Welcome to the Restore Church Podcast. For more information, please visit restoreportsmouth.com.
All right, y'all good?
Keep that long hair back.
Gotta slick that hair back. By the way, your son was like, before we went to the National, he was like, "You gonna get a haircut for the National?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna get a little trim." He said, "Like tight?" I was like, "No." He's like, "Oh." I was like, "Why?" He's like, "You look way better with tight hair than long hair." I said, "That's your opinion." He's like, "It ain't just mine." he just walked off.
I think we just recorded that too. So underneath there will be a poll where you can vote whether he should be tight.
And there's nothing I like more than knowing I'm doing something to irritate the majority of people. Whatever most people don't like, that's why I grow mustaches. Yes.
Let me tell you a little story about Pastor Mark. He can walk. You can walk out of him delivering a message, and 99 people can walk out and be like, "Dude, you really bombed it. You really did terrible. Like, should not have said half the stuff."
Right.
And one person mixed in that 99 say,
all it takes.
"Mark, you did good today." And man, he is good to go.
I have gotten good at holding on to compliments and letting criticism go. I promise. It's a gift.
But then by Monday, the 98.
No, yeah, they creep back in.
Say.
But the only thing I'll tell everyone about is, Joey said that was a really good message.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, because we don't see that aspect of you on Monday.
right after, and then it quickly nosedives.
Easy, Sue, easy. He doesn't have 98 other people holding him up.
Yeah, it was tough. It was really hard.
Well, good morning and welcome to Wednesday Morning Live. This one is impromptu. I haven't even told them what they're talking about today because I want to see what they say.
We're that smart.
And that's probably what it is. It's got to do with the
He knows
smartness.
that we can handle any topic, anytime. We've got our scriptures ready. Sue's got them memorized. I have to use a reference, but here we go.
And I'm going to start in Psalm chapter 40 today, but I want to talk about how to have a positive outlook in life. And I know that's very general, but just 2 weeks ago, we came back from a conference, and someone who I would say is very close to me asked me, "Hey, how was the conference?" And I immediately went into all of the negative.
Yeah.
And now we heard news at the conference about churches that were struggling, about people who were hurting, about pastors who were stepping
We ran
down.
into a lot of discouraged people.
Yeah.
That was part of it.
And it was very discouraging. But at the same time, at this same conference, there was a lot of good things that happened. There were things that were voted on. There were things that were moving forward. We're seeing new church plants.
Missionary retired, longest serving missionary in
70
our history.
years.
Thousands of people led to the Lord.
350
in his
churches are planted in that country because of
India,
him.
Yeah. But we didn't focus on that.
Right. And so when I was asked, "Hey, how was it?" I immediately was like, "Man, you're not going to believe it." And
Churches are hurting. Pastors are discouraged.
And to me, I'll even look at it as I'm doing this because people are hurting.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of times that we can have a positive outlook in the midst of. And I want to read real quick Psalm chapter 40, verse 1. It says, "I waited patiently for the Lord to help me, and he returned to me and heard my cry. He lifted me out of the pit of despair, out of the mud and the mire. He set my feet on solid ground and steadied me as I walked along. He has given me a new song to sing, a hymn of praise to our God. Many will see what he has done and be amazed. They will put their trust in the Lord." I love the part where it says, "He lifted me out of the pit of despair." And I think we've all been there. So you ever been in a... Go ahead.
Okay, first verse again.
First verse. "I waited patiently for the Lord to help me, and he turned to me and heard my cry."
Okay, so obviously he asked God for help. He recognized the fact that he did not have a good attitude.
Yeah.
Type thing. And as for me, definitely, it's easier to go the wrong way than it is the right. I mean, no matter what, if my daughter had friends over, well, how did it go? Well, you wanted to hear about all the mishaps before, so-and-so, that part was good. It's just sort of like gossip is another thing. You're looking...
It drives us.
Bad news circles the globe before good news gets out of bed. What's that saying? We love spreading bad news. We love having people, a pity party. I focus on that first word, patiently. We were in men's group the other night, and we were talking about perseverance and patience and how patient fortitude is just hard. And in the biblical description of perseverance, it said you got to be patient and still have the fortitude to withstand what's coming your way. And so whenever somebody's down in a pit, the first thing we want to do often is quit. Like, man, whatever, just throw up our hands. And he waited patiently for the Lord. And it sounds like it was a long time before God inclined his ear to him. Yeah. And that's the season of doubt, discouragement, where we just kind of, man, am I even making a difference? Who cares? Why does it matter? These kids aren't listening to me. My marriage isn't getting any better. I don't feel any closer to the Lord. So I like how the verse is all about what God did, but on the front side, there was some personal responsibility too. I'm going to wait. I'm going to be patient. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
The other thing that this is also saying is he's not in a group. It sounds anyway like he's by himself. And obviously something went wrong, and he's praying and he's waiting. So he's not even getting encouragement from others, from anybody else. He's just sitting there waiting to hear from the Lord.
We've all been in those situations where you feel all alone. You feel just like neglected, and nobody understands, and nobody cares even.
Right.
But I think in the, and I'm almost 40. Very close to being 40. But I'm getting to the point where it's more of a natural state for me to be able to find the positive in things. Not that I always do. It's easier for me to find the negative. It's easier for me to focus on the negative, but it's becoming more of a habit of the positive. And I love what he says. He pulled me out of the muck and the mire, or the mud and the mire. He pulled me out of the mud and the mire. But you're talking about him doing it alone. But verse 4 says, "Oh, the joys of those who trust the Lord, of those who trust the Lord, who have no confidence in the proud or in those who worship idols." But verse 5, "O Lord my God, you have performed many wonders for us." Amen.
Right. So obviously he might have been alone when he's writing this. But obviously he had been with others, has had encouragement from others, or not necessarily encouragement, but maybe being held accountable by others in the past. Yep. And that's a good thing. It's like you say, it's never good to be by yourself, because that negative is going to be a mountain by the time you get through with it.
So there's a couple of things that could be going on here in the background. I'm trying to figure out when David wrote this, and it looks like it could be upon his coronation, but it also could just be, like Matthew Henry commentary says, it's just after some difficulty. Not necessarily one with Saul, not necessarily one with his son Absalom, but some great distress and trouble that he has been in. And he's writing it to the psalmist. In other words, he wants it to be put to music, because he wants this experience to be sung by the people of God when they go through their personal tragedy. But the language of muck and of pit is that whether or not he was physically alone in this, in his mind he was alone. In his mind, nobody was with him. Everyone had abandoned him. And that's really where most of us find ourselves. We're not physically alone, like we're still at home with the kids or our wife or our friends. We go to church and we're around people, but if we're not careful, like King David, man after God's own heart, we can convince ourselves, I'm all alone in this. No one else cares. No one cares about me. No one knows what I'm going through. And the truth is, that is a powerful weapon in the hands of the enemy. To convince you that not only are you alone, you're in a pit by yourself. Everyone up there doesn't care about you. God has forgotten about you, abandoned you. But it's often in the pit, it's often in the valley that we grow the most, even though we don't enjoy it. Every Christian wants to grow. It's kind of like people want to lose weight without going to the gym or watching what they eat, or say they want to have more money without making financial decisions. Most of us Christians want to grow without valleys and pits and difficult seasons. They kind of go hand in hand. Not that you should seek out difficulty or pits or discouragement, but when they come, we have a choice here. Are we going to believe the lie? And he did. He believed that lie for a long time. But then he was brought out of it, and it was God that delivered him. And that's another thing that we tend to do. We want someone else to deliver us instead of God. God, send me a spouse. God, send me a better job. God, send me more money. God, send me, when really God wants us to say, God, I need your deliverance. I need your peace, your rest.
Yeah, and I love verse 5 where it says, "O Lord my God, you have performed many wonders for us. Your plans for us are too numerous to list. You have no equal. If I tried to recite all your wonderful deeds, I would never come to the end of them."
Yeah.
And man, it's amazing how one situation in life can distraught us to the point of everything around us is falling apart, everything is negative. And for some of us, it's a weekly battle. For some of us, it's a monthly battle. For some of us, it's a daily battle. But I love how he ends in verse 5. If I tried to recite all your wonderful deeds, I would never come to the end of them. And we talk often, even Mondays mainly, about when we go through all the prayer requests and things of people that are hurting. And as we share them, man, we start hurting with them. And if we're not careful, we will get ourselves to the point that we're hurting and we are so overwhelmed with their hurt and what they're going through that we're not able to be of help because we have put ourselves in the situation almost.
Yeah.
When we should be sitting there and saying, God, we need you to give us opportunities to be able to encourage them, to be able to lift them up, and God, be able to get their attention focused, not on all the bad things that are going on right now, but on what God has done around us. And man, it doesn't.
How do we do that? How would you suggest we do that when we are sitting in a room and we hear somebody just
and that's a tough one, isn't
enjoying
it?
their pity party?
Yeah, and that's a tough one.
The temptation is to think that we can fix it. Oh, I'll get you some resources. Oh, I'll find somebody to fix you. And what we do is we think we're going to take the load off of them, but the hardest part is just sitting there and shutting up.
Yeah.
Like Job's friends. They got it right for the first couple of days where they just sat there and mourned with him, and that's all he needed. A hug, cry, some tears. It's when they opened their mouth that they got into all kinds of trouble.
And it's crazy because Job was pointing out and saying, no, I'm not going to turn my back on God. He shared all his struggles and his difficulties, and then the friends were like, well, turn your back. And he's like, I can't.
Right.
Like, he's in his right mind. He just wants to share.
And what's funny is they were right, then they were wrong.
Yeah.
So we're all going to do this. We're going to get it right sometimes, and then we're going to screw it up royally. But when we're trying to get people to see that not only can I not fix it for you, even if I could, I would certainly, but the point is not just getting through this problem. It's finding what David described as that rock solid foundation. And that is hope and peace that can only come from God. And so regardless of how this situation turns out, my hope is secure, my faith is secure, my relationship with God, I can depend on him. And that is not the fix of the problem, it's the solution to your mindset. Like, I have made it through this, and the listing could go on and on. And when you think that way, you don't think about what you're in, you think what you've been through, you begin to realize, like, okay, I may feel like I'm slipping, but there's rock here somewhere. My faith is rock solid, and my God is able. And the truth is, we live in a broken world. And so if I live another 100 years or another 10 years, as long as I'm here, there's going to be slips and struggles. But my foundation is secure for eternity. I've got a home in heaven, and I've got a different perspective. And seasons of trials will come, but they will not last forever. There's weeping in the night, but there's joy in the morning. Like, we're going to get through this, and it may not be the way we want. But often, our doing doesn't do much. When we're counseling someone, encouraging, I mean, we could point out, obviously, don't do this. We've made some mistakes here. Avoid making this same habit or mistake. But a lot of times it's just saying, yeah, this is terrible. And listening to people, not trying to fix. Because when I have my pity party, I don't want to hear solutions. I don't want to hear answers. I just need somebody to be like, yep, yeah.
Yeah, I remember one time we were out here, right outside this door, as a matter of fact,
Yeah.
and you were going through like several things that were just really bothering you. And I just was like, dude, it's okay. And you were like, can't you just be mad with me just for a little bit?
Yeah.
Like, legit, that's what
just
happened.
be angry with
And
me.
honestly,
That's all I
like,
want.
Like, there are times that somebody needs that reaction. Like, man, that is hard. That is tough stuff.
But we can't stay there.
Right. But we can't let them stay there.
Yeah.
And I was thinking even this morning, and I think this is kind of why we went this direction. I called a friend of mine who I know he's got a very good job, but very stressful job.
Yeah.
And he put on all kinds of weight, was losing sleep, just you understand. And so over the past couple years, I've just been talking to him and trying to encourage him and listen to him and so on and so forth. And on this phone call, hey man, how you doing? I'm doing good. And Kevin, just let me tell you, I got the big position that I've been waiting for, so that now I can make changes in the area that I'm at. And it wasn't me coming in and saying everything's okay. It was just listening. But his thing was, I've just found the best thing that I can do is when I get down, I've got to go in my office and I got to pull out my Bible and I've got to read and I've got to sing hymns and spiritual songs.
You used the right term when you started, is habit. We have to make a habit of when we hear ourselves thinking negative thoughts, that we have to have some kind of a trigger to make us stop and take a look. I know in one of your past services you were saying, hey, this is what I want you to do this week. Think of 10 things that you can be thankful for, you know, in different areas of your life. When I do my morning devotions, I've got a chair in my bedroom where I have all my books and stuff there. And right across from me is this old dresser. And the old dresser was a gift from your family to me. And I thought, just look how blessed. I mean, how can I sit here and be negative when look what God has provided? I mean, friends around me that have given me everything I need. You know, so knock it off, Sue.
Right.
You know, and you need, to me, the dresser is my trigger in the morning when I really feel
When the
bad.
drawer doesn't close and you're like, if I just had a new one. But seriously, no, this goes back to the very first verse. I waited patiently for the Lord to help me, and he turned to me and heard my cry. He lifted me out. He has given me a new song. And then verse 4, oh, the joys of those who trust the Lord. Nobody wants to trust the Lord if our demeanor and our outlook on life is always negative. Like if all we focus on all the time is the bad things. If you're at the water cooler complaining about your boss with everybody else, you're bringing poison on yourself. Like we're just drinking that poison. And I'm not saying that everything has to be lovey-dovey and rainbows and sparkles and unicorns. But I am saying, like, there is a difference in a true believer. There has to be a
joy
difference.
is contagious, and we should be people of joy.
Yeah.
And real joy is not found when you get the raise and the new car. Like, joy is discovered and joy is exposed in difficult seasons. That you can be peace-filled and joyful when everyone else can't believe what you're going through. And you are maintaining that joy. Not a denial of what's going on, but a real presence of God, and that's why it's a fruit of the Holy Spirit. It's not natural. It is supernatural joy. And I just believe that if Christians would live lives that produce supernatural Holy Spirit, fruit of the Spirit, man, joy, peace, patience, long-suffering, people are going to want to be around you. You won't be able to keep them out of your group. You won't be able to keep them out of your home. They're going to want to come over, spend time with you. You're not going to be able to keep them out of church. They're going to want to know where you go, what's going on. And they're going to think it's your group, it's your church, and what they're going to come to realize is your relationship with the Lord. And certainly we discover our relationship with the Lord through the ministry of the church. We grow in our relationship through the groups at the church. But it's human lives that matter. Our groups, our church, we're not going to win the world to Jesus. The people in the groups and the people in the church who live those lives, they have all the power. The ball is in your hand. And so, I mean, just realizing that you're going to have to be patient and yet joyful is...
Yeah, it goes back to the ministry that we talked about 2 weeks ago, I think. Now, how the calling to ministry. How do you know you're called?
You're called.
Yeah, we're absolutely called, and if we are struggling with that calling and saying, well, it's not really,
we're all called to ministry.
Man, come on, guys.
Yeah.
Look, and it's not rocket science. It goes back to, it's looking where we came from. He lifted me out of the pit of despair. Like, we have a hope that others don't have.
That's right.
We have eternity.
Yeah.
And he's not asking us to go to our past and stay there. He's asking us to look at it and see what he all taught
Yep.
us through that and then go forward.
Yep.
But it's,
I wouldn't
and by
trade the
doing
difficult
that-
seasons that I've been through.
I think this
I
verse.
wouldn't, because they've grown me.
Yeah.
Right.
They've grown me, and I've
Exactly.
seen God's faithfulness through them. And in the midst of it, it was like, why would you do this? Why would you
Yeah.
allow this to take
Yeah.
place? It wasn't God doing it, but yes, He allows things to happen because I have a free will, I have a free spirit, and many times it was brought on by myself, by my own wrongdoings. But I wouldn't trade it because it's such a learning experience.
This verse really points to the benefit of experience. The older we get, the more true we find verses like this to be. When we're 21, everything's a problem. Everything's a pit. You get older and you realize, like, some of those pits weren't nearly as
Right.
deep as I thought.
Choose your battles.
That's right. And you begin to realize, like, there are some real every 25-year pits. And once you've come out of that, I mean, we're talking death, divorce, you name it, some real hard to deal with seasons of life. And once you've seen God be faithful through that, man, a bad day at work, I mean, that's
But it still gets us down,
Right.
But there is a faithfulness to it. There's a looking back.
it's good.
Well, guys, I've finished my water.
That means it's time to go.
Time to go.
Time to go.
Any closing remarks?
Nope. I think this is a good topic after last week's topic of frustration
Yeah.
and such. We just
Let's put
have
away
to
that.
continue working on the positives. And by doing that, the awesome thing is when, even if we only get 50% of the time right, God blesses us for it.
Yeah.
God still loved David.
Yeah.
Even through all the messes. And that to me is the goosebump part.
And I'll mention what you kind of started with. Well, he sounds like he's alone. One of the most encouraging things in my life is not what I do, it's who I'm around. Okay? Some of you think that if I was a pastor, I'd be more encouraged. You probably wouldn't be. But if you had good people around you, you probably would be. So if you find yourself constantly discouraged, I don't want you to just look at what you're doing or what's bringing you down. I want you to begin looking around at who am I determined to be around. Because if you're not in a small group or on a serve team or around Christian brothers and sisters, that is a major part of this.
Yes.
So when you have people like Sue, like Kevin, who can pick you up when you're down, who can hurt with you when you're hurting, but not say, we're going to live here, let's move forward. I think that's a lot of it too.
Yeah, and if your Facebook posts are constantly doom and gloom, and I just talked to so and so, and they helped me recenter my life, and like there's something to that too. Like
Yeah.
you really.
Facebook is how we live our lives now.
We have to, guys. We have to get off the social media and the news and the things that are just
The sky is falling.
everything's terrible. And we've got to get into God's word. We've got to focus on things that are true, that are honorable, that are just, that are right.
That's
what the
absolutely
Bible
good.
teaches. That's what
good.
the Bible teaches. Okay?
Yep.
Guys, have a fantastic week. Thank you for joining us. And we will see you next Wednesday morning, and we will discuss. We'll tell you next Wednesday.
Yep.
See ya.
So tune in.